Hi there, welcome to the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. I'm Nat Ryan. Have you ever gone to a gathering like a barbecue or a church social or anything like that, or even going to a book club meeting and there's some sweet treats there, some cookies or pie or cake or something, and you can't eat it because of your dietary restrictions? Like maybe it's not gluten free, it's not dairy free. Yeah, I know. I've been there too, and it sucks, right? So, what I'm proposing to do today is we're going to make something that you can easily bring to these occasions. And yeah, so what we're going to make today is some vanilla macaroons. They are made with coconut, obviously. So, if you cannot eat coconut, this is not going to be the recipe for you. And they do take eggs in the form of 4 egg whites, so 4 egg whites. So if you cannot do eggs, this isn't going to be the recipe for you either. But it is gluten and dairy free. And they're wonderful to take. They're like a soft, chewy cookie, but they work great at these things. They're easy to take with you anywhere. You can have them at home as well, of course. And they're just like, they'll satisfy your sweet tooth for something dessert-ish, but it's not hard to take with you. It's not hard to pack and take with you to these things. So it's wonderful, and most people love them as well. So they're great for sharing as well. And most people don't even know, it's immaterial whether they're gluten and dairy free. To other people, they don't care. They just taste great. So we're going to make a batch of the vanilla macaroons today. And so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is go over our ingredients just really briefly here. And so the first thing we're going to need for vanilla macaroons, well, not the first thing we're going to use, but we're going to need coconut, shredded coconut, about 2 cups of shredded coconut. And it can be either sweetened coconut or unsweetened coconut. In this case, I've got sweetened coconut. Okay, so it'll work for either one. And we're going to need some sugar. So then the amount of sugar that you need, just plain white sugar, the amount of sugar you need is dependent on whether your coconut is sweetened or unsweetened. So if you're using unsweetened coconut, then you'll need 2/3 of a cup of sugar, of plain white sugar. And if you are using sweetened coconut, just use half a cup of sugar. So there's that. We're going to need 6 to 7 tablespoons of gluten-free flour. Now, it could just be any kind. You could use almond flour for this. What I like to use all the time, pretty much for all of my baking, is gluten-free 1-to-1 flour blend. I love the Bob's Red Mill. It's my favorite kind to use. So they're really great. I've tried other ones, but this one really works really well. And we're going to need some vanilla extract. So pure vanilla extract. You need 2 teaspoons of this. So we're going to do that. And of course, you need those egg whites. So that's what we're going to like. We're going to need 4. I've got 6 here, but we're going to need 4 of them. And that's what we're going to start with, is the egg whites. So that's the next step. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is separate our eggs. So what we want to do is put the egg whites in the big bowl together. And then we're going to put 2 egg yolks each into these containers so we can save them and use them later. So here's what we're going to do. Always crack your egg, not on the side of a bowl, by the way. I learned that from a professional baker, but do it on your countertop. Okay, so we're going to crack it open. We're going to very carefully open it up and let that run out of there. Kind of jig it if you need to. And then we're going to slide that egg yolk into the other half of that. Now, it doesn't matter when you're putting this egg yolk into, and it's starting to break. If you put the egg yolk in and you get a little bit of egg white in with the egg yolk, that's fine. What you don't want is a little egg yolk in with your egg white. So that's one. Let's do another one. Let's do better crack here. And yeah, the other trick too, if you don't want to do this, I do this, use clean hands. Just put it right in your hand. Now, if you can stand it, it's a little bit slimy. So some people may feel like this is like, oh no, because that should Oh, wow. These eggs are cold. And when your eggs are cold from being in the fridge, look at that egg white just kind of does that, right? So yeah, we're going to try to get as much of that. You can go from hand to hand and kind of let that egg white slip through your fingers. So yes, obviously you want to have really clean hands to do this. And then I'm putting that egg yolk in with that other one. Okay. Whew, that's like messy, isn't it? Okay, let's go again. Let's do, oh yeah. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Like, I know, see, so you don't have to be too ultra gentle with it. Whoop. Like, I don't mind getting messy. I like to get my hands in everything, so it doesn't really bother me, but some people go, I can't do that. It's so gross. Okay, and it feels really slimy and weird. So that one, see, got that in there, no problem. We're going to do the last one, probably more traditional way, so you can see that again if you're wondering, like back and forthing it between the two halves of the eggshell. So there's that half, and you can see it sort of cuts the egg white off too. So you can go back and forth with that through onto the two halves of your eggshell, and then we're going to whip that one in with the other one. So there we go. So you've got two containers now, each with 2 egg yolks, and we can save those for a later use. And we got our egg white there. So I'm just going to clean up my hands, and then we're going to whip this off because we need to make this into soft peaks before we add anything else to it. So be right back. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to whip these off in our bowl, right? So I'm left-handed, so I'm going to change hands, put this on, and put it on high. And we're going to do this until we get soft peaks forming. So I'm probably going to turn the sound off at about the time that I start this because it'll be really loud. I'll show you how loud it's going to be, but this is the thing. So here we go. Okay, so let's see if we got soft peaks. It's a little bit droopy yet. So how you check for soft peaks, you stop and you kind of go up, and that's not really holding a peak yet. Don't need to be hard, but we need it to kind of peak up a little bit. So a little bit more, let's roll. Click it again, and up. Okay, that's making a pretty good peak. I'm just going to give it a little tiny bit more because I know for me, once I put the other ingredients in, that will go down, but all right, and once again, kind of peaking, like you could see where it's holding its little peaks. I don't know if you can tell that, but when you lift up, there's a little peak there, and it will kind of hold itself in that position. That's as much as you want it to be whipped off. So it looks like that. It almost looks like a cloud at this point. So then we're going to add our other ingredients to that. Okay, so here are our whipped egg whites, right? So we're going to just set that aside for a second. And what we're going to do is add our other ingredients to this. Now, we're going to fold each of the ingredients in. A little, you could do it and just like dump your ingredient one at a time in here and fold. But what I like to do is I like to get another bowl and then put my other ingredients in there. So there's the flour, or the other ingredients that are dry or semi-dry, right? So the flour, that was that 6 to 7 tablespoons of flour. In my case, half a cup of sugar because I'm going to use sweetened coconut, put that in there. And then my coconut, right? So I'm going to like literally add all this together in another bowl and mix it up together as best I can. I gotta take my hands. I could have actually got this because I want to put it in there, fold it in with using this. So just mix it up together so that you have it. So it kind of pre-mixes this together, and then we're going to put it in with the egg whites and fold that in. And then last but not least, or you could even do it first, is to do the vanilla. I think probably, but anyway, by the time you just dump the ingredients one at a time in with the egg whites and fold them in, But the more fooling around you're doing with your egg whites, the more it's going to like deflate it. They're going to be deflated a little bit anyway. Like they're not going to stay soft peaks in there. Like it's not going to stay like the way it looks now. But what we're going to do is just dump that in with your egg white and take a spatula, and we're going to kind of fold it in. So you're going to see like sort of chunks of egg white like that. So, and you go like that doesn't look like, it looks too dry. Okay. And then what I like to just start getting it mixed up together like that. And then I'm going to add my vanilla in at this point. So this will kind of give that moisture that we seem to be missing here. And then we're going to mix it all up together. We're trying to fold it more than just kind of like, instead of like going like this, we're trying to fold it in together. But we still want it to be uniform. And as you can see, now that's going and going down. That's okay. And it's going to be quite moist. So, you know, it's going to be actually quite wet. You're going, oh, it started off looking so dry, and now it's like a wet, gooey mess, right? So there we go. And the vanilla, because it's a brown in color, that will kind of make almost look like a toasted coconut look because it's brown. Now I got some really nice vanilla one time from a friend of mine who goes to Mexico every year, and she travels to Mexico every year, and she brought back some vanilla that was clear. So it was kind of cool because all my baking, it wasn't colored brownish, but that was really nice. But any kind of vanilla will do, especially, you know, pure vanilla extract. Okay, so there we have it. That's mixed up, and then we're going to get that on the pan and baked off. Okay, so we have our batter here, if you want to call it that, our goo. It looks like goo. And then we got a pan. Now, I really strongly suggest that you use a piece of parchment paper on your baking sheet or something else, like you might have silicone mat or something, because this is very sticky. Now, you're going to need 2 teaspoons, right? So, because we're going to put teaspoonfuls. So, I get like kind of a rounded teaspoon of it, and we're going to stick a blob in the corner. Try to get it as far into the corner as I can here, because I do that corner and then I do the corner that's diagonal from it. So up in the other corner here. So one corner and then the other. So one corner, the other, and then go corner to corner. And we're going to put all of that. We're going to make a full pan of these. Okay, so we got our full pan of the macaroons. There's 12 little blobs here, and we're going to put them in the oven, a 325-degree Fahrenheit oven for 20 minutes. We're going to watch. We're going to keep kind of an eye on them near the end. So for the last 5 minutes, because we want them to just go a little bit golden brown around the edges, but not like burnt. So you got to be careful because there's a point to that, right? Because they're quite sweet that they could burn. So 15 to 20 minutes, but generally for me, I find it takes a good 20 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so while the first pan of the macaroons bakes, you can do one of two things. You can just wait until those macaroons come out and you know that they're done, and then go again with the rest of your batter. What I like to do is, while I got one pan of macaroons or cookies or whatever I happen to do, I like to create another pan ready to go when those ones come out. So that's what I'm going to do. What I would suggest is you might be tempted, I should say, to put 2 pans in side by side together. I don't recommend that. And because, you're shoving 2 pans in side by side, what ends up happening is not as much air gets around the pans. Because, when you're baking, it's all about that hot air getting around these things to bake these things off properly. If you go too much, pans too close together, jammed up next to each other, really close, what could happen is there's not enough air going around the pans. And when that happens, things don't bake evenly, and you can burn things on the the sides of the pan that are closest to the walls of the oven, and then you can so you're burning that, but then the stuff in the middle the cookies or whatever it is, or macaroons in this case, in the middle of the pans, like near the middle of the oven, aren't cooking as baking off as well. So this, as well as they could be. So I would suggest doing one pan at a time and just setting the pan in the middle of the oven rack, and that's it. So don't get tempted to do that. I've done it before. When you're in a hurry, you're baking. Oh, I could bake these all off, no problem, in one go. And then, using two pans at once. And I would suggest not doing that. Now, the other option too, that some people do is they put one pan on the bottom rack, and then they stick another rack up higher and put the second rack at the top, and then switch them out and everything. I find that problematic when you're baking. It's one thing when you're cooking up pizzas for dinner or something, but it's quite another with baking, because how much time should this be on the top or the bottom, and if you have something on the top rack, then how long is that reducing the time it needs to be on the bottom rack? So it's really problematic. I find it's not even worth the headache with that, because I find, am I overbaking, am I underbaking? I'm checking more often. I've got the door open, opening and closing the door of the oven too many times, and so I don't like to do that. So anyway, here's my second pan ready to go when that first one comes out. While we're waiting for that first batch of macaroons to bake off, and we're letting the second batch wait for those ones to come out, let's talk about what we can do with those egg yolks. So I've got 2 egg yolks in this container, and I've got 2 egg yolks in that container. What the heck are we going to do with them? A lot of people, when they're making egg white omelets and stuff like that, they throw out their egg yolks. Like, I had a friend who only bought organic free range eggs, and she would make things with the egg whites and toss the egg yolks out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Right? I don't know, maybe I'm just cheap or something, but I just can't make myself throw out these things. So what do if you got extra egg yolks? Well, I do have a recipe for homemade lemon curd that takes egg yolks, and you can find that. I'm probably going to link up to it right about now. So we're going to try to get that linked in there for you to that video. So you can make something like a lemon curd. So that's kind of a lemon spread. So you can do that with egg yolks. There's a lot of things you can look up online. I happen to look it up to see making sauces, making puddings. You can throw them in. You can add an extra egg yolk in when you're making chocolate chip cookies or something, and it will kind of make that fudginess, more fudgy apparently, and make them taste more rich and creamy. You can make egg Benedict sauce out of that. So call it, or any kind of sauce, like the hollandaise sauce. So it takes egg yolk. You can make that, and stuff. But one of the easiest ways, honestly, is to just throw a couple extra egg yolks in with a couple just whole eggs when you're making scrambled eggs, right? The simplest and easiest solution. If you want, though, what you can do too is just take a couple egg yolks, or the whole whopping thing, like if you got 4, but let's say the 2, and you're going to scramble that up and put them in, and you're making like something like a fried rice. So you can add that to making a fried rice or anything like that. You can add it to when you're making a primavera style pasta sauce. So like you're sauteing some vegetables, and then you can toss in a little bit of the egg yolk and make sure it gets cooked, but basically, and do that, and then it kind of creams up with those vegetables, and you're making the sauce. So there's a lot of ways to use it, but like I say, simplest way is just to add an extra egg or 2 and scramble them up and make scrambled eggs. Like, what could be easier? But you can also, you can see I put them in little containers like this that have a little lid. And what you can do, it's just because I've had so many, it's all messed up on here, but it's because I put labels on it so many times, it just doesn't want to even come off the top anymore. So it looks messy. But put a cap on it. You can put them in the freezer. And I would suggest like whipping it a little bit so they're not like separate, sort of like separate little. They are all mixed together. Just label it, cover on it, label it, put it in the freezer. You can use it later, right? So use it within probably a few weeks and you'll be fine to use them again wherever you want. I just, if you want though, and it doesn't bother you, toss them out. But if you're like me and you're going, I can't waste food, this is like, it's just too much of a waste, then there's other things you can do with them, definitely. So let's go check on those macaroons now. Okay, so our first batch of them is out of the oven and the second batch is in. So these look pretty good. They're like, as you can see, a little bit, I hope you can see that, a little bit browned around the edges. And if you spatula them off, you can see the back, it looks a bit like that. So a little bit of browning there, but definitely not burnt, okay? And like, take a spatula to get them off the pan, because I'll show you. They will stick a little bit to that parchment paper, just a bit, like not too terrible, but that's why the parchment paper or something is really necessary. So we're going to put these on a rack. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, my pan is cooled off enough here that I can just whip it like this and get this out of the way. And I will get my rack. Now I have one of these, which is great. These are great. I've got stackable racks. And so what I'm going to do, when I have a lot of things, I can stack 3 or 4 tier up. So I'm just going to pull them off and get them on the rack to cool completely. And then we're going to add the other ones to that as well. And in just a little while, we're going to give that a try. So there we go. There they all are. Oh, let's see. There we go. So there they are. It's 21 of them actually, because the first pan was a little bit larger. I was able to get 12 well separated because you don't want them to kind of touch, because if you do that, it's a gooey mess. So you don't want, like, and then the second pan had 9. So 21 altogether. Let's give it a taste. I'm going to pick this little one right now. It's really, really early in the morning. It's about just after 5 in the morning. And so I'm going to have this one. Chewy, sweet, coconut, vanilla. Lovely. Like I say, very transportable. They're very easy. You could freeze them. They're, let them cool off completely and put them in a bag, freezer bag, whatever, even an old bread bag, freeze them, take them out when you want them. Really great. I am going to take a batch of these with me to the church barbecue tomorrow. And I'm going to cut up some fruit and have some a coconut yogurt dip for the fruit. And I'm going to have these macaroons. And that way, unlike last year at the barbecue at the church, there will be a dessert that I can eat. Now, there was fruit there, but there was no baked good that I could eat for dessert. And I think this year there will be. Not something hard to transport there, because I have to walk to the church as well. So I didn't want, I got to take this pie, oh my gosh, or this cake, holy crap, I got to get the, So this will be easy and really, really good and nice and chewy and delicious. Just that right touch of sweeteners after having burgers on the barbecue. Wonderful to eat these anytime. Great with a cup of tea or a cup of strong coffee as well. So I hope you give them a try. Thanks for stopping by today. Excuse me. To the Dietary Restriction Kitchen. See you next time. Bye for now.